Hi, everybody. Happy Friday night. Good to have you here on the Banfield Show. And it is a super busy night, so I'm just going to dive right in. There is a story that I'm going to start tonight, but it is not going to be over because I have this feeling it is going to explode right across the country. What if I were to tell you that a man who pleaded no contest to a litany of charges, almost a dozen, including sexual battery, forced oral sodomy, rape by instrumentation, strangulation, just to name a few, okay, against a couple of teenage girls. What if I were to tell you that guy got 78 years in prison? You'd probably say, makes sense. One of those teenage girls needed surgery on her neck after the strangulation. Again, he pleaded no contest, which means you got me, right? Then what if I told you that that man had his sentence reduced to 150 hours of community service? And you know what? A year from now, when you turn 19, we'll just say all this never happened and you won't even have a record. How would you feel about that? Because that is what happened to those two girls. That is what happened because the man who's 18 was 17 when the rapes occurred. Rapes he's admitted to, strangulations he's admitted to, forced oral sodomy that he has admitted to, sexual battery that he has admitted to. No record. Think you might hire him? Won't come up on a background check. Think you might date him? Won't come up on a background check. I am going to dig into this and find out how it was that someone who is so close to being an adult, typically does get an elevation to adult charges, suddenly got downgraded from the 78-year sentence to 150 hours community service. Be good out there now, y'all. We're going to talk about that in a moment. We're also going to talk about a story that kind of died away, and we don't know why. Because we kind of expected murder charges when a underage runaway turned up decomposing in the trunk of a singer's car. Singer wasn't charged. Nobody else was either. And it has been weeks and weeks and weeks. Turns out there's a big development, like a huge development in the case of David the singer and that underage minor runaway, Celeste, who was found dead in that car in an impound lot. There is video of the last time that car was driven to the spot where it was left abandoned. And guess what? The driver caught on the video. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about who, what, when, why, and what the LAPD is doing about it, all that in just a moment. And then I just guess I have to show you this now. It's hard for me to describe it and give it justice, so I'm just going to have to show you what happened on the doorstep of a family in Virginia, a widow and her two kids. They're inside the home, and outside the home on the ring cam is this. Take a look.
Wanna get you? Open the door!
Yeah, you might think that doesn't sound too menacing, but there were three of them, and all three of them came to that door, repeatedly rang the bell, banged on the door, opened the door, and rattled the inside door handle, and threatened this family that if they didn't come out and open the door, they would burst in. Lest you think it was a joke because there was some laughing, they went around the back and started breaking in. But a little later on in the show, you're going to know what was waiting for them behind the door. Do not miss that. Let me start here, though. Whatever else you happen to be doing this minute, if you're making dinner, if you're drying the dishes, if you're checking your email, stop. Stop and take a good, long look at the face that I'm about to show you. Pause your TV and make sure you get a picture. Take a picture of your TV, get a screen grab, and I need you to share it far and wide. This is Jesse Mack Butler, 18 years old. He's from Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's a college town. It is also home to, Oklahoma State University, right? And it's about an hour north of Oklahoma City. And back in March, when Jesse Mack Butler was 17, he was charged as an adult with a string of sadistic sex crimes against two girls. They were fellow students at Stillwater High School. One of the girls was choked unconscious and almost died, according to her doctor. Jesse Butler was charged with 10 felony counts in all, and it is very important you see the list. I think you'll get a picture of what happened when you see this list of charges. 2 attempted rapes, 3 charges of rape by instrumentation, and you'll have to use your imagination about what that means, but yeah, it is literal. 1 count of sexual battery, 1 count of forcible oral sodomy, 2 counts of domestic assault and battery by strangulation, and 1 count of domestic assault and battery. And while there were even more and way bigger charges that the state likely could have thrown at this kid, like attempted murder, the 2 alleged victims and their families had every reason to believe that the wheels of justice were hard at work on this case, both for them and for the accused, Jesse Mack Butler. And before I tell you what ended up happening, let me tell you why he faced those specific charges, what he actually did to those 2 girls. You should know that these details are extremely graphic. They are despicable, but they are critical to this story, especially when you find out how the judge came down in this case. So fair warning, trigger warning, what I'm about to list out for you is very uncomfortable to say and to hear. A police affidavit says a girl who's identified only as LS because she's a minor dated Jesse Butler for about 3 months, starting in January of last year. She was 16 at the time. And during that time, the victim said Butler repeatedly raped and attempted to rape her and would strangle her if she refused. The teenage girl needed surgery to repair the damage done to her neck by the strangulation. And her doctor told her that she would have died had that strangulation lasted another 30 seconds. The girl said that she gave in to Jesse Mack Butler because he threatened to kill her, and he threatened to kill her family if she didn't give in. A separate affidavit says in March of last year, Butler took up with another 16-year-old girl identified only as KS. And that relationship lasted 6 months, but this teenager also said that Butler was aggressive and violent with her and says she went along with all the unwanted sex to avoid being hurt further. This victim also said that one time when she did refuse, Butler strangled her too. But get this, he recorded himself strangling her until she passed out. And lest you think this might be just a he said, she said, police later found that video on Jesse Mack Butler's phone. So that's what we call evidence. Jesse Butler pleaded not guilty to everything, as was his right off the bat. But in the coming months, for reasons that I will not pretend tonight to understand, the DA's office struck a deal with Butler's lawyers to change his status from adult to youthful offender. The victim's families begged the DA, please do not do that. Please, no. But in July, a judge decided to sign off on this. And in August, Jesse Mack Butler changed his plea from not guilty to no contest, meaning he knew there was ample evidence to convict him. And you should know that a conviction is the result of a no contest plea, right? That's what you get, convicted. By the way, I mentioned there were 10 counts before, but by August, there was 1 more. So the grand tally now stood at 11. The new count was for violating a protective order, which, oh my God, facing 10 felony counts and violating a protective order should have been a hell of a red flag for anybody, somebody. But the very same day that happened, Butler was sentenced to 78 years in prison, which sounds like a fitting punishment for somebody who nearly kills 2 teenage girls and rapes them repeatedly with all sorts of things. But as a youthful offender, Jesse Mack Butler was also entitled to special treatment, like a rehabilitation plan, which was drawn up by the Oklahoma Office of Juvenile Affairs, and that plan was presented to the court last week. This new punishment called for daily check-ins, weekly counseling, a curfew, no social media, and 150 hours of community service. Bam! They really brought down the hammer, huh? 150! Oh! That's like 3 weeks if you work really hard. This new plan is scheduled to stay in effect until Jesse Mack Butler turns 19. And that, my friends, is less than a year from now. So, wow, long punishment. Here's another kick in the teeth, if you're anybody other than Jesse Mack Butler or his family. If he complies with his court-ordered rehab punishment for that less than a year, and if he doesn't break any more laws, his record will be wiped squeaky clean. He won't spend a day in prison, his name won't appear on any sex offender registry, and nobody in other towns or other schools or universities or businesses or dating sites will have a clue as to who Jesse Mack Butler really is or what his proclivities have been. If you run a background check on him, again, thinking about dating him, hiring him, none of this is going to show up unless you maybe get my show, maybe some of the online talk. That's why I suggested off the top of this show, grab a screen grab of that. That's the face. I mean, he's young, he's gonna change, but that's him. Spread that far and wide. That's all you got, folks. That is all you have to protect your girls and protect yourself. And now I'm going to stop because I am livid, and I'm going to let Justin Shepard have a word here. He's a digital journalist whose online handle is Just in the Nick of Crime. He has been on this case from the beginning. And let me tell you, Justin, you have done some unbelievable digging, not just on the case itself, but the justice system and the players, not only the judge, but the judge's father and those involved. It sounds to me, and this is just a very sweeping comment, Justin, but it sounds to me like this is like the Low Country Murdochs and how they used to run justice in their neck of the woods. Am I off here?
No, you're not. In fact, it's funny you said Murdoch, because I was talking about somebody else about this today earlier, and I said this is just like the Murdoch situation with how deep this goes. And yeah, normally when I get a story that comes across my desk and I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about this one, and I'm like you, when I first saw this one, I was absolutely livid. I still am. And the next thing I knew, I had so many people reaching out to me about the way Stillwater, Oklahoma's judicial system handles things, the type of punishment that sex offenders get or lack thereof. And it goes much deeper than I would have even begun to have imagined.
So let me ask you this. Why no attempted murder charge? The doctor who treated the first victim, who has the surgery scar from the welt and the intense swelling that continued after the strangulation, he said that if she was strangled 30 more seconds, she was going to die. Why was there not an attempted murder charge in this case?
That's a great question, and your guess is as good as mine. I mean, maybe perhaps at the beginning they felt they didn't need it with the other litany of charges that they had, that they ended up, pleading down to, 150 hours of community service. But it seems to me when you've strangled somebody twice, to the point that one of them needs surgery, why that wasn't an attempted murder charge it's beyond me.
Is this kid in school with these girls? Because he's walking free. He is out there. Is he allowed to go to school with these girls?
So that's a great question. Right now, he's virtual school. So he is still enrolled at Stillwater High School. He is enrolled virtually, so he can't be seen with these girls, or he can't go see them. However, it is my understanding from people close to the case, people close to some of the students at the school, that he is still texting, trying to hook up, asking if they're single, things like that. So it's like none of this meant anything to him. Like, it's basically, hey, I got a slap on the wrist. This is a get out of jail free card. So I'm just going to continue to live my life with these minor inconveniences.
So during all of this, he allegedly is still trying to hook up with other girls at the school, presumably who know all about what happened to these two fellow classmates.
That's my understanding, yes.
Wow. I mean, I guess I should be surprised if he was violating a restraining order during all of this adjudication, during the fact that he was facing 78 years in prison. He still decides to violate a restraining order?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a big elephant in the room here, which is who Jesse Mack Butler really is. So his father is a man by the name of Mack Butler, and if you Google him, he will show up as a former athletic director or director of football for Oklahoma State University, for OSU, which is a pretty big job. He worked at one point for LSU. He's been with several universities throughout bowl games, and then he was hired on at Stillwater High School as an athletic director. And if you look at the news article from when he was hired, the whole town knows who this guy is. Like, you know, a name that you know well around town is now coming to Stillwater High School. So this is a family that is very well connected to the Stillwater area. For a college town, a football town, you know, you can't get much higher than somebody who is involved in the athletics, which his father is.
Let me ask
And
you
he
this.
is.
Justin, how about this? The judge in this case, Judge Susan Worthington, I read your Substack about all of the figures in the justice system, and it did not sound good. They are extraordinarily lenient. Their track record looks as though it's like sexual deviance. Oh, wow, whatever. A lot of the sentences, a lot of the bail has let sexual offenders run rampant in this community. First, I think this judge, second, her father ahead of her. Tell me if I've got that wrong. But did Judge Susan Worthington here on your screen, was she also connected to the offender's dad at OSU or through any of the athletics programs?
So this is all, you know, unconfirmed speculation or rumors, I should say, based on what I've heard, is that she and her dad, whose name was Don Worthington, and the two of them, I think it's worth noting, have kind of ran the bench in Stillwater, the judiciary, for about 50 years. So the two of them have kind of been, you know, over everything. And it's my understanding that both of them, the father and now the daughter, Judge Susan Worthington, are very much involved with OSU athletics, whether it's as donors, whether it's as supporters. That's just kind of what I've been told.
What's the recourse here? I got about 20 seconds left. There's got to be something that these families can do.
The only thing that you really have as far as reopening the case is if the DA decides to do that. I believe that's Laura Thomas. And based on what I've started to learn about her, that's highly unlikely. The only other thing that these families could do is probably sue the Butler family legally, given the fact that Jesse was under 18 at the time. That would possibly make the parents liable. But that's kind of the most you're going to be able to do, other than make sure that his face is everywhere. Because once, like you said, he turns 19 years old, this is wiped clean. So all we're going to have is a Google search.
It's just unfathomable. We just had the list of charges up on the screen again, Justin. It's just, again, 11 charges, 10 of them extraordinarily violent. He pled to them. This is not allegations. This isn't he said, she said. These things happened to those girls. And 150 hours of community service and a couple of check-ins and no social media is all he's going to get. It just doesn't seem like this is America, if that's the kind of justice that these families are going to get. Stay on this with me. Please break in at any time. My phone is on speed dial to you. Let's continue to cover this and see what happens. I think there's a protest coming up, right? Is it November 5th? November 5th?
Yes, November 5th in Stillwater. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's see how many people turn out for that, because at some point the dam is going to break. Justin, great job in reporting this. Justin Shepard, often with us. I just want to read something real quickly. The DA, again, she's Lauren Thomas. Her office sent us a statement, and I'm going to read it to you in part. The youthful offender sentence imposed against Jesse Butler requires him to complete his rehabilitation plan successfully, including an aggressive schedule of therapy with a specialist in sex offender treatment. And should he fail, he faces reclassification as an adult and a sentence of 10 years in prison. It goes on to say youthful offender was the most likely final outcome, particularly because the 2 counts of attempted rape were the only alleged crimes among the 11 charged that even qualified the case for filing in adult court. And additionally, because existing law strongly favors providing offenders under 18 an opportunity for rehabilitation. Blah, blah, blah. I know how it works. And I know something else that's really big. It's the word discretion. And that's what DAs have, discretion. Everybody around the country exercises it. Where's yours? Continue to follow that. In the meantime, I got to stop down because just ahead, a massive bombshell, a piece of evidence in a case that seemed to be going nowhere. Almost 6 weeks after the rotting remains of Celeste Rivas Hernandez were found in a Tesla that was owned by her boyfriend, the singer named David, video has now emerged of what's likely the last time that car was driven. Someone is caught on camera driving that car to the spot where it was abandoned and later impounded, with a dead runaway teenager in the trunk. And that someone has now been identified. The investigator who brought this video to light and also obtained the last known photograph of Celeste alive joins me next. Here is a story that I'll bet you haven't forgotten. Somebody put a dead or soon-to-be-dead teenage runaway in the trunk of her boyfriend's Tesla and ditched that Tesla on an upscale street in the Hollywood Hills. And weeks later, that Tesla, with the rotting corpse inside, was ticketed and towed away. That somebody may or may not have had a hand in the runaway's death, but my money is on yes. And more than a month after this mystery first hit the headlines with the discovery of the decomposing body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the name of that somebody is as unknown to us officially as ever, but apparently not to everybody. The identity of the person who abandoned that Tesla, a filthy luxury car owned by the singer David, with David's 14-year-old girlfriend dead inside, is now known to investigators. And tonight, we're learning that both the car and driver were captured on surveillance video the last time that car was apparently driven by anyone. Even better, we've learned the driver was visible enough in that footage to be identified later on. LA police are not talking about this or anything else in the Celeste death investigation. The bombshell video was unearthed by the private investigator hired by the owner of the house where David lived up until a couple of weeks after Celeste was found dead in his car. And that's not the only piece of evidence that the PI unearthed. That investigator's name is Steve Fisher, and he joins me now live. Steve, welcome back to the program. How certain are you that this video of the car driving away from David's mansion is the last time it drove and ended up at the spot where it was abandoned, likely with that body inside?
I'm certain. Listen, I can't say 100% because there's not a camera trained on that Tesla once it's parked. Continuously that I've seen. I mean, there likely is a camera, but I've seen the car driven to that spot, and with the dates, with the date that it was, and they left town right after that. I'm certain that is the last time the car was driven. It was put there with her, in the front trunk.
And there's one weird detail about what you could, well, there's a lot of weird details, and I'm going to get to what you saw through the driver's side window in a second, but there was an air freshener that was found in the car at this point that we see on our screen, where it was abandoned. Was that air freshener also hanging from the rear view mirror when it drove off from David's house?
It wasn't, but the window was half to three-quarters of the way down, which is odd because it was a very short drive. And also at that on that day, this is the very end of July 29th, it was like 78 degrees at that time in the morning, or 77 degrees. And if it was on the street where the house is, so it's shaded by the house. So, if you're going, I don't know why the window would be rolled down unless there's something, offensive there. And then all of a sudden, one of the first things I picked up on when the news first broke about her being found in there, where they were towing the car away from the impound lot to LAPD, was why on a $104,000 car is there a Christmas tree air freshener hanging from the from the mirror? It seemed kind of odd to me, but I guess maybe they thought that would help, mask it for when they had to move the car again.
If there was that smell at that time, because again, we have no idea when Celeste started decomposing in that trunk. We don't know if she'd been decomposing in the trunk for a long time before it ended up being, the car ended up being abandoned. But talk to me about the date of this video, July 29th, and talk to me about what you saw. What did you see in terms of the identity of the person driving through that open window?
So it's very clearly that Tesla, one, because the Tesla has that tape on the rear spoiler for whatever reason. I don't know why it's there. And also, it was just like it is in that picture. It was that dirty, except you could tell that they had run the windshield wiper like once to clear the dirt away so they could see. And it comes very close to the camera, although there is some motion blur, but you can see the person and you can see what they're wearing, something pretty distinctive. And there's photos that I have from 12 hours earlier, a person at the house wearing the same thing.
And I know that the viewers right now are screaming at the TV set saying, Ashleigh, ask him who it was.
I mean, I honestly wish I could tell you. I don't want to, I don't want to interfere with LAPD on that. And I think that's coming because we know a crime was committed 100%. Somebody concealed her body. And, hey, maybe the reason I don't want to say the person's name is because maybe this person was just someone that was asked to move the car, and didn't know. I find that very hard to believe. And I doubt that's the case. But just in case, I'd rather LAPD make that announcement.
Well, and it's important for us to tell viewers as well that you turned all this material over to them. You're the one who found it. You're the one who took it to them. You're the one who said, and I connected it to the photos from just 12 hours earlier, and here's the clothing. It looks like this could be an ID. July 29th, important because that was the last day that David was in Los Angeles, right? But before he went off on his tour. So he was there in Los Angeles on that day that drive happened.
Yeah, I've seen on his public social medias, he had put a video out where it was the first day on their new tour bus because they were going to San Francisco, I believe, for the first night of the concert series. And they did a video from inside the tour bus. So I believe hours after that car was moved, they actually got on the tour bus and headed to San Fran.
Let me ask you this, and I only have a couple seconds left, but you found some other suspicious things. The landlord, as you know, we obviously know now, allowed you into the house, and you saw some things in there that were very uncomfortable and very suspicious. I know you can't say certain things, but what can you tell us about what you saw inside the house? Well,
this is the landlord found it also, but there were some things in there that were hard to think about because these would be items that would be used if you wanted to get rid of a body. And there's really no other purpose for them at a house like this or anything. And they're expensive items. And so they weren't jokes but they weren't used. I'll tell you that they were still in the box. So I don't know how much we'll find out about that in the future because you can't charge somebody for thinking about doing something. But I think that they had a plan.
But it's important to know, because the first thing I said when I learned of that was that, well, that can't be possible because the LAPD raided the place and took everything. But you know for a fact that they photographed those things, and they're huge and heavy and expensive, and so they have ample information and photographic evidence of those things.
They said that we inquired about this, and they said that they photographed it. I don't know why they didn't take it. There's two items. I don't know why they didn't take them, but they said they photographed them.
Steve Fisher, I got to cut it there, but I got to have you back. That's just a lot of information and a lot of reporting, and I just can't believe there hasn't been some movement on this case. Thank you so much for bringing that to us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Steve Fisher will be back on this program again. Coming up next, it's been more than 2 weeks since two teenage girls were murdered on their bikes in New Jersey when a Jeep rammed them at high speed. The teenage boy behind the wheel was arrested and charged as a juvenile, and tonight it is unclear if he's even in police custody. What's more, new accusations have surfaced the boy had been stalking, even swatting, one of the girls' homes for months. Her family's attorney joins me next. And then later on, ring cam that looks more like a horror film, complete with killer threats.
Who is it? Open up the door before we make our inside.
Since last we reported on that deliberate hit-and-run killing in New Jersey that claimed the lives of two innocent teenage girls, some highly disturbing details have come to light. But when it comes to some basic facts on the story, amazingly, we're still in the dark. I know you know the case. Police say two 17-year-old high school students, Maria Niotis and Isabella Salas, were rammed by a Jeep going 70 miles an hour. Allegedly behind the wheel was a 17-year-old boy who, by some accounts, was obsessed in a warped and malicious way with Maria. Vincent Battalorio is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, but so far, he is charged as a juvenile, and that means tonight we don't even know whether he's in custody or not. And if so, where? If not, is he at home with his dad, a retired cop in a neighboring town? What we do know from Maria Niotis' family is the extent of the suspect's alleged harassment in the months before that horrible scene on Burnside Avenue. The family says Butler would loiter in his car outside their house, send pizzas to the house, cash on delivery, and twice he allegedly swatted Maria's family, calling 911 about non-existent emergencies. Both times, police rushed to the Niotis residence, but the family says police never investigated or tried to stop the stalking and the pranking and the tormenting. And the family thinks they might know why. Brent Bramnick is the Niotis' family attorney. He's also a former assistant prosecutor in the office that is handling this murder case. Brent, thank you so much for being here tonight. First question, it's a quick one. Do we know if the 17-year-old is in some kind of custody?
Good evening, Ashley. So in New Jersey, there's a very confidential and sealed nature of juvenile matters. So that information is not presently available publicly, but it's certainly a question that could be asked to the county prosecutor's office. But there is a sealed nature of juvenile matters in New Jersey.
Let's go back in time, because I feel as though swatting is serious business and it usually results in serious charges. But we can find no evidence of any charges of swatting, even though there's apparently complaints that it happened twice to this poor victim.
That's correct. So the easiest way to describe this is swatting incident number 1 and swatting incident number 2. So the first swatting incident, what happened in this matter was that it was only the next day where, through Maria, the family found out that their house was swatted. And they came into evidence and information that they turned over to the authorities, to the police department. And the question the family's asking, the question that we're asking, is what did the police do with that information? Because there then was swatting incident number 2, not that long after. And swatting incident number 2 raises even more questions. Why? Because in swatting incident number 2, the family was home. As you described, swatting, calling in an event. There's no event going on there. And Fula has stated publicly, she sat down with Eric Shawn the other day, and she said there was nothing going on in the house that required any police presence. She hears the doorbell ring, and she goes downstairs. When she opens the door, the police are there. And then what does she see? She sees the juvenile defendant parked in his vehicle on their street. And she points out to the police, there he is. And again, I'm not quoting her. You can listen to the Eric Shawn interview and you'll hear what she said exactly, but she pointed them out. So what did she observe next? Well, she next observed the police go over to that vehicle and begin talking and begin interacting with the juvenile defendant. And then she observed another vehicle come on scene. At that point, she sees that the police take the juvenile defendant over to that vehicle, and then a short time later bring him back to his vehicle and allow him to leave the scene in his own vehicle. And when she is told by the police, what is she told? She is told that the juvenile defendant, the father, is going to make sure he goes straight home. We have many questions about why that took place.
Boy, I do as well. And I'd love to know if the family ties, meaning the dad is a cop in a neighboring town, has something to do with that, which I'm sure we will be finding out in the future. I have to leave it there, but I know it's a 60-day process where they have to decide if he's going to be raised from juvenile to adult. I literally am out of time, but do you think yes or no?
I think that it would be very reasonable for them to make that decision to waive this juvenile defendant to adult court.
Meaning raised to adult, correct?
Adult, correct. I think it would be a very reasonable decision under the circumstances.
Brent Bramnick, I'll have to have you back. I'm just jam-packed with news tonight, but I have longer questions I have for you. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Coming up next, one of the biggest names connected to Jeffrey Epstein just got taken down a notch by one of his most strident accusers, who's not even alive anymore. Prince Andrew is losing his royal titles, which is not exactly hard time in a supermax, but why the sudden move to step even further out of the royal limelight than he already was? Is another shoe about to drop, or say a few hundred of them? The page-turning details, and yes, that's a hint, coming up next. I don't think I know a soul in York, England, but I know they deserve better than Prince Andrew. And apparently King Charles agrees with me. Today, Charles's little brother, who is not just a prince, but for decades has been the Duke of York, announced that his Duke days are behind him, and he implied that it wasn't entirely his idea. It seems those pesky allegations that he was a frequent flyer with serial pedophile Jeffrey Epstein just got taken up a notch. And as always, the royals aren't amused. I'll tell you what the latest crisis is in just a moment. But first, here's what the prince said in a statement, and I quote him. In discussion with the king and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honors which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Those accusations, as you're surely aware, are that Andrew had sex with that young girl, 17 years old, somebody he met through his good friend Jeffrey Epstein. The scandal dates to at least 2019 when Andrew, quote unquote, stepped away from royal life, as they put it back then. And his black sheep status was cemented in 2022 when he settled a lawsuit from that 17-year-old, now adult victim, Virginia Giuffre, for what is believed to be millions of dollars. So why the gut punch now? Apparently because Virginia Giuffre is speaking out again, but this time it is from beyond the grave. Virginia died by suicide in April, as you may recall, but her posthumous memoir is set to drop next week. Excerpts are coming out now describing sex with the prince on 3 separate occasions, and one of those times allegedly was during an orgy on Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Talk about spilling the tea. Ordinarily, these are just the kinds of details that out-of-court settlements are designed to keep quiet. But whom is Andrew going to sue? Even if there is an NDA between them, a non-disclosure agreement, is it going to remain in effect even after the person that it's meant to silence is gone? Can they last in perpetuity? Either way, Virginia Giuffre is pretty sure to have the last word on this one. But you can bet we'll keep you posted. Okay, last night we brought you what I called one of the last things that anybody ever wants to see on their doorbell cam, and it was a burglar who was naked as a jaybird. But tonight's clip is even worse.
Wanna get you? Open the door!
After the break, a fright that may have crossed into felony territory, and it could have been deadly. Don't miss it. I would have thought this went without saying, but Halloween is still 2 weeks away, and even then, there are limits. And what a trio of punks did on Tuesday to a widow in Virginia crosses every limit I can think of. They appeared on the woman's doorstep dressed as a terrifying clown, an evil nun, I guess, and Michael Myers, the serial killer from the movies. The woman's 2 kids were with her inside, and at first they thought it was a prank. Laughter is heard on the ring cam, but then things got ugly. And then they got even uglier. There were threats made, attempts to actually break in, and this went on for 10 solid minutes.
It's your worst nightmare! They bang on his head. Act like he's serious. Act like he's serious. Who is it? Wanna get you? Open the door!
Eventually, this trio got bored at the front door and decided to move around back, where they broke down a fence, slashed the screens on a deck, and banged on the windows. And sometime after that, they finally gave up and disappeared. The homeowner's daughter says that the family chose not to exercise their Second Amendment rights, but that they could have, and police agree. They're looking for doorbell video from the neighbors to try to identify the attackers, and big-time criminal charges are likely. So if this is a prank your kids think is funny, remember that Second Amendment piece. Thanks so much for being here tonight. As always, I ask you to check out my Drop Dead Serious podcast. I have a deep dive into Grandma Tiffany Adams from Oklahoma, who killed those 2 Kansas moms in a horrible conspiracy with 4 others. 2 still alleged, 3 others have made deals. She pleaded no contest. Basically, it means, okay, you got me. I did it. Deep dive on that story. Drop Dead Serious. As always, I ask you to check it out. Have a good weekend. Cuomo starts now.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.